My brother had always hated me. He once told me to my face that it'd be better if I just died. So I granted his wish. I developed stomach cancer. Yet when I did, he regretted it. Still, I died. With a smile. Right before him. Jason's call came through as I arrived home. The crumpled diagnosis form in my bag felt like a lead weight. He'd never initiated contact before. It was Dad's birthday the day before yesterday. His voice carried an Arctic chill through the phone. Typical of him. Why didn't you? Because I didn't want to. I cut him off. Your presence should have been enough. After all, you rushed back from abroad earlier this month for Emma's graduation. Emma Taylor, our cousin who'd grown up in the Smith-Johnson household since childhood. His surrogate sister. The line crackled with his sudden anger. Emily Johnson. He growled my full name like an accusation. I ended the call. Dusk's final rays illuminated the shredded diagnosis. Confetti scattered across my desk when his text arrived. Mother's memorial is approaching. Jason Smith. My brother. My lifelong enemy. I'd stolen his mother through my birth. 23 years ago. My arrival on the delivery table became Mother's death sentence. My existence was original sin, the reason Father lost his beloved wife. The reason Jason grew up motherless. I hadn't intentionally missed Father's birthday. That day, doubling over from abdominal pain, I'd finally sensed something wrong. Though truthfully, my absence probably brought him relief. Jason didn't contact me again. Standing outside our corporate headquarters Monday morning, I steeled myself. Since joining Smith Industries after graduation, I'd climbed from entry-level to management without anyone suspecting our relation. We maintained stricter professionalism than most co-workers. Last week's executive vacancy had everyone whispering about my inevitable promotion. Emmy, a colleague linked arms with me in the hallway. Don't forget to treat us when the promotion's official. I smiled faintly. Nothing's certain yet. But you're the obvious choice. She insisted. Nobody else comes close. Jason stood at the far end of the conference room. Our eyes met briefly before Frost reformed. Good morning, Mr. Smith. He acknowledged my greeting with a nod. Colder than strangers. As if our phone confrontation never happened. The perfect CEO. Even now. The conference room gradually filled with attendees. Jason Smith cleared his throat, prompting my colleague to shoot me a knowing look. I lowered my gaze to avoid her pointed stare. At that moment, a familiar name echoed through the room. Emma Taylor. The slender figure entering through the doorway carried the same gentle smile from years past. Standing beside her, Jason introduced to the group MS. Taylor recently returned from overseas and will assume the assistant manager position. Several pairs of eyes flickered toward me before darting away. I kept my own fixed on Emma's radiant smile at the podium, sensing the atmosphere thicken with unspoken tension. My applause rang solitary until scattered clapping dissolved the awkward silence. Emma met my gaze with crescent moon eyes. The break room's bitter coffee aroma hung heavy as I stirred my mug. My colleague fumed through gritted teeth. How can they parachute her into your position? Open nepotism. Emmy, aren't you furious? You nearly hospitalized yourself working overtime for this promotion. Her eyes dropped to my dark circles. Seriously. Ease up on the caffeine. The ceramic mug warmed my palms as I murmured. Management must have their reasons. She opened her mouth to retort when a jarring ringtone interrupted. Jason's voice crackled with restrained anger through the phone. Emily Johnson. My office. Now. Coffee sloshed onto my blouse as I jolted. The scalding liquid seeping through fabric. Understood. I replied quietly. The office door revealed Emma Taylor hunched on the sofa, clutching a document while Jason sat glowering behind his desk. Observers always noted we siblings shared only our upturned eyes that naturally repelled approach, a genetic trait enhanced by our mutual aversion to smiling. Jason had never directed any smile toward me anyway. Though Emma's appointment seemed sudden, she's fully qualified. Jason's brow furrowed as he addressed me. If you resent this, voice it properly. Whispering behind doors and turning staff against her? Emily, must your malice run so deep? Barely 12 hours since the announcement. I glanced at Emma, who chose that moment to meet my gaze. Her youthful face glistened with unshed tears before she hastily looked down. The stage was set for dramatic confrontation, but I refused to play my assigned role. People will talk regardless. Besides, my words drowned in the crash of an expensive pen shattering at my feet. Black ink blooming across the floor like sinister petals. Emily! Jason's roar choked off as my resignation letter fluttered onto his desk. When his eyes scanned the document, fresh fury erupted. Emily, are we children here? Is this some petty tantrum? The crisp paper crumpled in his fist before being hurled back, landing at my feet like discarded trash. It wasn't out of spite, I finally said. I'd known this truth for years. Spite was a luxury I couldn't afford. That privilege belonged to those with someone to soothe their wounds. Not me. I'll handle the HR paperwork myself. The door slammed shut, cutting off Jason's roar mid-sentence. Before I'd taken 3 steps down the hallway, Emma's hurried footsteps caught up to me. Emmy, her voice trembled with suppressed tears as her fingers brushed mine. Please don't be angry. I'll decline the promotion. I'll talk to Jason right now. Don't throw away your career over this. I never should have come back. Don't let me ruin your relationship with your brother. The empty corridor echoed as I wheeled to face her. Even now. Emma wielded that same weapon she'd perfected at 14, trembling lips, red-rimmed doe eyes. The artful vulnerability that had once made me believe her tears myself. Emma. My thumb dug into her chin as I forced her gaze upward. This act never gets old. Does it? The elevator's chime sliced through her choked gasp. Releasing her, I stepped into the metallic box alone. Her reflection in the closing doors showed frozen shock as I said flatly, You know, Jason and I were never siblings. You've always played that role far better. The mirror-polished steel framed my expressionless face as my stomach twisted. There'd been a time when Jason and I coexisted without this venom. In childhood, though coldly indifferent compared to our ghost of a father, he'd at least tolerated me. I'd clung to the naive belief that blood mattered, that even if Jason disliked me, we were still family. Then Emma arrived freshman year. I learned how brothers could laugh. How they defended instead of sneered. How they cherished rather than ignored. But Emma wanted more. 5 days after transferring to my middle school, Jason backhanded me so hard my ears rang. His accusations of bullying and cruelty made no sense until I saw Emma cowering behind him, clutching his shirt with tear-stained fingers. I denied everything. He called me a liar. That day shattered my childish delusions. Jason wasn't fooled by Emma's act, he simply chose to believe it. The realization struck like ice water. My brother didn't merely dislike me. He hated me. The relationship between Emmy and Jason deteriorated rapidly. Unfortunately, being as naive and foolish as Emmy was back then, she only thought that instead of letting Jason treat her like a stranger like Dad did, she should confront him head-on. At least Jason would notice her existence. This tense stalemate between them lasted until Emmy turned 18. The year she turned 18, she was dragged into hell. After her 18th birthday, her relationship with Jason abruptly turned into that of complete strangers. It felt like a war that ended mid-battle. They stopped arguing, stopped the hysterics, stopped locking horns. Everything just turned cold, as if they'd never known each other. After finishing the paperwork and returning home, darkness had completely fallen. The streetlights in the complex hadn't turned on yet, leaving only the warm yellow glow from the houses across the way visible. The abdominal pain that started in the afternoon still lingered. Curled on the couch with hunger and pain crawling through her body, Emmy struggled up to check the refrigerator. A wave of putrid odor assaulted her, reminding her she hadn't opened this appliance in over a month. She grabbed some wilted greens, gave them a perfunctory rinse, and started chopping with uneven thuds. Crimson droplets bloomed on the jade-green leaves like bloody flowers. Emmy froze. The pain blossoming from her finger finally registered she'd cut herself. When the compulsion surged, Emmy couldn't resist. Among the lattice of old scars, a fresh crimson line appeared, trailing from forearm to wrist. The knife clattered to the floor as she knelt gasping for air. She seemed to be losing control over these self-destructive impulses. The doctor used to say during episodes, she must take medication. But she didn't. The doctor also advised having family around. Emmy, communicate more with your loved ones. Feeling cared for helps recovery. Yet, Emmy stared at the meandering blood trails. Yet she has no family. The stir-fry from last night ended up in the trash untouched. Hunger and pain twisted together until Emmy collapsed unconscious on the bed. A morning knock jolted her awake. Bleary-eyed, she stumbled to the door and peeked through the chain. All drowsiness evaporated at the sight of the frost-coated Jason standing there, his expression as impassive as ever. Emmy instinctively slammed the door, the metallic crash erecting an instant barrier. Hurriedly throwing on a jacket and long pants, she reopened the door to meet Jason's piercing gaze. Any particular reason? Emmy skipped the pleasantries. Jason's eyes dropped to her wrist on the doorknob, where a colorful tattoo peeked out. He narrowed his eyes. Voice icy. Got more ink on your arm now? Emmy remained silent, which he took as confirmation. His detached demeanor cracked. You insist on wallowing with that delinquent until you become trash yourself? Emmy knew Jason had a vicious tongue. At their worst, their words were poison-tipped daggers aimed to maim. But he couldn't insult Zoe. Because Zoe is her best friend. The faint scent of tobacco on the man invaded my nostrils as the veins in my temples throbbed violently, making me nauseous. The abdominal pain that had temporarily subsided returned with a vengeance. My hands trembled violently as I gripped the door handle until I could no longer restrain myself. Instead of landing on Jason's face as intended, my slap was intercepted by his iron grip around my wrist. Years-old scars met foreign body heat. I saw it clearly, that fleeting look of shock on Jason's face. The scar on your wrist, he began. But my second slap cut him off mid-sentence. His head snapped sideways, and his fair skin bloomed crimson from the force. The tobacco scent now felt like barbed wire around my nerves as icy dread crawled up from my feet, consuming my entire being. Wrenching free left angry red marks circling my wrist. Clasping my own hands tightly, I willed them to stop shaking. Emily, get out. I stared fixedly at my shoes, my voice trembling. Don't touch me. Get out now. When Jason left, I rushed to the bathroom, frantically scrubbing the contact point until the scar tissue tore open. Blood mingled with icy water in the sink, and the vivid crimson cleared my mind through ragged breaths. At noon, the delivery guy brought an excessive order. I spread the containers across the coffee table, and the rich aromas conquered my 2-day fast. Chopsticks clattered as I shoveled food mechanically, only to purge everything later in the bathroom lit by clinical light. My damp dress clung to the cold tiles as I scrolled through chat records frozen 1 month ago. Zoe's final message blinked. What did you eat today? No reply. No mention of diagnosis. 5 years of friendship felt simultaneously eternal yet fleeting, heavy enough to etch into my bones. Yet erased in minutes. Confirm deletion? The red text pulsed. Escalating pain made the choice obvious. 5 years vanished with one tap, severing my last earthly connection. The doctor's words echoed. Advanced stage stomach cancer. With treatment, maybe 2 to 3 years. I'd thanked him without commitment. My own brother had once wished me dead. Why cling to life? Days blurred in self-destructive cycles of starvation, binging, and purging. The calendar jolted me awake. Time was running out. Applying makeup over my gaunt features, I visited the mall on a quiet weekday. The ivory dress in the boutique window caught my eye. As I pointed, familiar laughter chimed. Jason, look how pretty. Emma's deer-like eyes widened upon seeing me. Emmy, she exclaimed with manufactured delight. The atmosphere was thick with unspoken tension. Jason Smith stood at the doorway, his cold gaze piercing through me. How touching, the long-lost sister returns from abroad, and her brother accompanies her shopping. My smile turned sardonic as I ignored them. I'll take that white dress in medium, I declared. Medium for me too, Emma Taylor echoed, our fingers simultaneously pointing at the same garment. The sales associate offered an apologetic smile. This style's been extremely popular this season. We only have the display model's medium left. Perhaps you'd like to browse other designs while I check our inventory? Emma frowned slightly, beginning to speak when I cut her off. Wrap it up for me. The clerk hurried to comply. Emma's saccharine voice interrupted. I met her gaze. Would you mind letting me have this dress? You know how much I adore white dresses. And you rarely wear. Still shameless after all these years. I muttered, glancing at Jason, who pointedly avoided eye contact, tacitly endorsing Emma's behavior. Some things never changed her insatiable need to claim everything I possessed. Toys, clothes, academic rankings, even family. No. My refusal hung icily in the air. Emma's eyes welled with theatrical tears as she retreated to Jason's side. He whispered something that miraculously revived her cheerfulness. Linking arms with him, she threw me a triumphant glance, another victory in her endless campaign to prove my brother now belonged to her. The dress meant nothing. This perpetual performance merely underscored her desperate need to demonstrate Jason's shifted allegiance. Not that it mattered anymore. This dynamic had dominated my entire existence. As days blurred together, my health deteriorated rapidly. Jason never reached out. I marked calendar pages like a prisoner counting execution dates. Until Emma's text arrived, an invitation to some gala. Casually mentioning, Emmy, Jason's worried about you. This could help mend things. Her manipulative prowess remained unmatched. Checking my dwindling timeline, I accepted. The ballroom glittered painfully under crystal chandeliers. After prolonged isolation, the cacophony of clinking glasses and overlapping conversations overwhelmed me. Across the room, Jason and Emma conversed with guests. He stiffened upon noticing me, tilting his head in silent expectation, always waiting for me to approach first. I turned away. Some dances never merit joining. When Emmy turned around, she saw me too. She immediately smiled and started walking toward me. I spun on my heel and retreated from the bustling banquet hall without hesitation. The wind howled across the balcony where I perched on the edge, listening to the muffled laughter behind me while counting minutes until I could go home. A pair of hands suddenly gripped my shoulders from behind, yanking me into the embrace of a stranger. The suffocating cloud of cigarette smoke clinging to him triggered instant nausea. I shoved away the unfamiliar woman, only to see Emma standing behind her in her glittering gown, batting her lashes at me. My phone vibrated in the clutch. Emma's text glowed on the screen. Emmy, Zoe noticed you earlier and begged me for an introduction. She's really sweet, give her a chance. Before I could finish typing my reply, Zoe grabbed my wrist. Her eyes lingered on my chest before darting away. That single predatory glance resurrected every buried terror. Slapping her hand away, I dry heaved despite my empty stomach as she pressed closer, forcing me back against the railing. The dim lighting, cloying tobacco stench, towering stranger. My last thread of sanity snapped. Trembling hands fumbled for the switchblade in my bag, but my shaking fingers couldn't control the blade. Steel flashed across her forearm, crimson blooming across my vision. Emily! The roar coincided with my knife clattering to the ground. Jason's voice thundered like Judgment Day. What the hell's wrong with you? My throat constricted, temples pulsing as if my skull might explode. Gasping like a wounded animal, I clawed at my parched eyes. Emma materialized in a flutter of taffeta, her gasp morphing into tearful concern. What happened? Zoe, you're bleeding. I thought you just wanted to talk with Emmy. The stranger grimaced. I barely touched her when she pulled a knife. Jason. Emma's trembling voice cut through the night. I'd vouch for Zoe's character with my life. The unspoken accusation hung like guillotine blades. I lunged at her, only to be shoved to the concrete by Jason. 3 silhouettes loomed over my crumpled form, belly burning, skull splitting, every cell screaming. Jason's frostbite voice pierced through. Explain this madness. Emily. Are you mentally ill? Emily. Are you sick? Answer me, are you fucking crazy? The words carved through me. I wanted to weep, but my eyes remained desert dry. I can't cry. I can only brace against the wall, enduring excruciating pain as I struggle to rise from the floor. Yes. I'm sick. Not long to live. Leaning against the doorway, I muster every ounce of strength to stand upright. My empty stomach has nothing left to vomit. Yet metallic sweetness floods my throat. Thick blood gushes from my mouth, staining my clothes and pooling on the floor. I see Jason freeze. Witness his instinctive reach toward me. I step back. Why won't you ask? Why won't you question what she did to me? You'll believe Emma's one-sided story but never hear me out. You never listen because you don't care. It's always my fault in the end because I'm the criminal. I owe Mom's life. Isn't that right? The room falls silent. My brother's composure wavers for mere seconds before resuming. His voice remains steady as he counters, isn't it true? Isn't it? Yes. I still can't cry. Even when my eyes burn with agony. Not one tear falls. So I'll repay Mom with my life now. This will be my final time calling him brother. I smile at Jason through bloodied lips. I'm dying soon. Happy now? Brother. Jason couldn't catch Emily that night. She vanished into the city's shadows. Later, he'd torment himself with countless what-ifs. If he'd moved faster. If he'd grasped Emily's hand. If he'd stopped her from leaving. Emily never returned home. His number blocked. Messages displaying only red exclamation marks. Jason smoked for 2 days outside her apartment. But she never reappeared. 2 decades of blood ties proved thinner than paper once she disappeared. He lost all means to find her. At the hospital, the bespectacled doctor shook his head grimly. Find her soon. Any later and she truly won't last months. Jason hung his head like a chastised student. Why did she get this illness? Young people never take care of themselves. The doctor sighed again. Jason Smith's nails dug into his palms. It was the 8th day since he lost contact with Emmy. He'd finally broken into her apartment. The locksmith packed up his tools as an overwhelming stench assaulted Jason's senses. In 20 years of resenting his sister, he'd never once stepped foot in her home. The sparse furnishings looked nothing like a young woman's living space. Ominous liquid dripped from the refrigerator when he wrenched it open. Everything inside had rotted. Room after room revealed the same sterile emptiness. Kitchen, study, bedroom all scrubbed clean yet devoid of life. The shattered aquarium in the bedroom caught his eye first. Rainbow-hued pills glittered among the glass shards like grotesque confetti. Then he saw the empty prescription box on the desk. Venlafaxine. The label read. His blood turned to ice. Jason stumbled outside. The toxic air clinging to his clothes. The July sun beat down mercilessly as realization crashed over him. This carefully curated void wasn't abandonment. It was erasure. If he didn't find Emmy soon. On the 12th day, Jason called Zoe. The line crackled with trans-Pacific static before an irritated voice answered. Who the hell's calling at 3 a.m.? It's Jason. Jason Smith. He swallowed his pride. Do you know where Emmy is? The cursing stopped abruptly. What's wrong? His throat constricted. She has stomach cancer. The dial tone buzzed in his ear. When he redialed a minute later, broken sobs answered. Treatment could give her another year or 2. Jason pleaded, tasting bile. Help me find her. Please. Zoe's anguish echoed through the receiver. Somewhere beyond the tears, He heard her whisper years, like it was both curse and prayer. What good is living a few more years for her? Jason Smith. You know nothing. Jason stood frozen in place. The familiar suffocating sensation threatening to drown him anew. I do know. He murmured hoarsely. Know what? That she, Zoe's voice crackled with bitter laughter through the phone. Jason. You're the person I despise most in this world. Emma Taylor is your precious sister. But isn't Emmy your sister too? Did you even realize she's already died once? Jason, her saw-laden accusations sliced through the distance like honed blades, piercing his heart with terrible precision. Did you know Emily Johnson stopped living at 18? The truth he'd avoided for years now crashed over him. He should have known. The evidence had surrounded him. Emily's sudden emotional winter at 18. Her glacial rejection of every male presence. From that cursed year onward, she'd abandoned dresses and tank tops, swathing herself in long sleeves even during heat waves. The jagged scars mapping her wrists. The folding knife she compulsively carried. The telltale orange bottles of antidepressants rolling across her bedroom floor. His only flesh and blood sister had begun her slow withering at 18. That year, Zoe's voice fractured. When I called you that night, Jason Smith, I didn't know why I was dialing. Maybe some deluded part of me still hoped that you'd save me. That you'd show an ounce of compassion. That you'd care enough to, a wet inhale. That I might find one reason to keep breathing through the suffocating darkness. The memory crystallized Emily's uncharacteristically soft brother, without its usual edge of resentment. Her whispered question hanging between static waves. If I really died, I'm begging, what would you? Moonlight had glinted off the kitchen knife beside her trembling hand. Jason remembered the awful silence before his reply. How her shaky breaths merged with the shadows. When he finally spoke, his words fell like shards of Arctic ice. Stop this histrionic nonsense. You're embarrassing our family. 23 seconds of static followed before the dial tone. That's great. You killed Mom. You should pay with your life. The seawater submerged my head instantly, and I kept sinking downward. Just as I was about to suffocate, I suddenly regained consciousness, gasping for breath like a wild animal. When the blade pierced my flesh, it didn't hurt much at first. But when the dark red blood began to flow, it felt like being dragged back to that day, the deserted alley where sunlight couldn't penetrate. The strange man using unimaginable force to yank my hair backward. I cried and begged. I said I was wrong. I apologized. Pleaded. Begged him to let me go. Please. Please release me. He didn't. Like the most vicious beast in the world, he gradually pulled me into the deepest abyss of darkness. He slapped me repeatedly. Every time I whimpered for mercy, he struck again, until the metallic taste of blood filled my mouth, rendering me incapable of forming complete words. He tore my clothes open. The stench of burning flesh mixed with cheap tobacco smoke invaded my nostrils. Light. Extinguish. Light. Extinguish. The glowing tip traveled slowly from my waist to my neck and shoulders, until the entire cigarette turned to ash. I don't know how long it lasted. From exhausted screams to numb endurance, I lay in the filthy mud while the beast ravaged me. I smelled my own charred flesh and the rotting stench emanating from within. If only I could die right now. But what had I done wrong? I was just walking home. Just wearing my favorite dress. Was that a crime? I don't know. When he finally left, the muddy ground seemed to merge with my body. Naked. All I could see was darkness. If only Emmy had never been born. If only I'd never existed in this world. That's when Zoe appeared. I didn't know her. Yet she called my name with perfect certainty. She draped her own coat over me, carefully wiped the mud from my face. Then, trembling, carried me in her arms. She took me to the police station, then brought me home. When I finally returned home, it was already past midnight. As I opened the door, my nominal father sat unusually in the living room. He merely glanced up, bypassing my disheveled hair, ignoring my soiled and torn clothes, overlooking my shameful, reeking body before immediately withdrawing his gaze as always. Later he left again, leaving the house empty save myself. Closing my eyes transported me back to that fateful day, scorched flesh rotting in summer heat. Death would have been preferable. Yet I survived. The phone rang unexpectedly. Zoe's familiar voice carried apologetic tones, weaving meaningless chatter until I pierced through her pretense. "Why are you calling me?" Her stammered response finally crystallized. "Don't die. Emmy." I feared you might." Her candor burned like live coals, making my eyes sting. Through the silence, I heard her anxious breathing mingle with the dripping blood, forming crimson blossoms on the floorboards. The cold glint of steel nearby. "All right," I finally conceded. "Call an ambulance." Survival came at cost. Inky shadows now wove suffocating webs each night, trapping me in memories of cigarette stench and lurking darkness. I loathed smoky odors, abhorred dim spaces, despised my own existence. Zoe accompanied me through that sunlit yet interior-bound summer, patiently enduring endless rounds of board games. When therapists recommended hospitalization, I declined. Prescription pills accumulated in glass jars, untouched. Every sensory detail from that night remained excruciatingly vivid. The agony, the odors, the razor-sharp awareness that simultaneously craved death and clung to life. Doctors suggested confinement, but I walked free, haunted by phantoms that might emerge from any shadowed corner to drag me back into hell. Through it all, Zoe stayed, this woman who memorized my number during desperate nights, whose transparent concern cut through my defenses. When dusk falls, I still see blood patterns on tabletops and gleaming blades, but also recall summer sunlight filtering through windows where Zoe patiently shuffled cards, anchoring me to the living world. Emily Johnson kept chattering with me about the latest TV dramas and anime. Deep down, I knew why. Every night, she'd secretly cry while watching me. By morning, her eyes would be swollen. One evening, Zoe Brown stepped out of the shower and froze when she saw me standing on the balcony, nearly sobbing in panic. I glanced at her and stepped down. "Zoe." I called her name. "Will you be my sister? I have no mother. My brother Jason hates me. My father treats me like a stranger. My body is broken. My soul rotten. I have nothing left." She rushed to embrace me, scalding tears soaking into my shirt. "Okay," she whispered. "Good girl, Emmy. From now on, I'll be your sister. Promise me you'll try to live well. Please?" "No." I hugged her back. "Sister," I said, "don't let me trap you. Please. I'm not meant to survive. The normalcy is just a fa. Odd day. Inside, I'm already collapsed ruins, waiting for death." After that summer, Emma Taylor went abroad. Jason Smith joined the company. Zoe got into university. Everyone kept moving forward. Only I remained trapped in the ruins of my 18-year-old self. The stench of decay clinging to me grew stronger each night since that evening. On Zoe's first day of college, I watched her leave at the airport. Her eyes were red, but she refused to cry. She held me tight, repeating my name like a prayer. Finally, she leaned close and murmured, "Emmy, if it's too much to bear, let go. It's okay." She knew. She knew every scar carved into my flesh. She saw me drowning in the quicksand day after day. She recognized each moment my sanity crumbled, when self-destruction became the only painkiller. I clung to her one last time. After Zoe left, I pretended to function normally, but every breath was torment. I no longer had the strength to fight with Jason. Every day, surviving alone sapped all my energy. I binged on food, had irregular sleep, and neglected my health. When I was diagnosed with gastric cancer, I felt a sense of relief. Finally, I could die. I had long set my departure date the anniversary of Mom's death, which was also my birthday. Yet in 20 years, I'd only celebrated it twice. Both times were with Zoe Brown. Truth be told, Jason Smith never knew. I secretly envied those who had mother's girls being held tenderly in their mother's arms and having their hair neatly braided. I loathed myself more than anyone else. That day came uneventfully. My stomachache persisted as usual. That morning, I vomited the steamed buns I'd forced myself to eat. Curled up on the couch, I scrolled through my photo album and deleted the pictures one by one. When the last one disappeared, I headed towards the balcony. A loud crash interrupted me. The flimsy door of our old apartment burst open. There stood my brother Jason. I hardly recognized him. 2 weeks' absence had made him look years older. Zoe must have told him about this place I'd mentioned once. Disheveled and out of breath, the usually stoic businessman hunched over like an old man. His broken gaze met mine. For the first time, I saw my proud and cold-hearted brother plead with red eyes and in despair. I was wrong, Emmy. His apology came 15 years too late. Sitting on the railing, I stared at him impassively. This 6-foot-tall man sobbed uncontrollably. My white dress bought at the mall that day revealed every scar. They weren't tattoos but self-inflicted marks from the nightmares that had become real. The cold tiles chilled my feet. Don't jump, please, his plea was carried away by the rushing wind. As I fell, I smiled at Jason. Jumping from a building, it hurts like hell. Let this be the last time. After enduring so much suffering in this lifetime, maybe in the next, fate might finally show me some kindness. Jason. I whisper his name as my foot slips into empty air, my body plummeting uncontrollably downward. I watch panic contort his features. See him charging toward me. I simply smile. I'm going to find Mom now. Jason didn't catch his sister. She died right before his eyes.